Hey guys, back again for another Sunday walk. Yeah, it's not morning, it's actually evening right now. We got a really beautiful sunset going on. We always have beautiful sunsets in Las Vegas. That's the one thing. Well, it's not the one thing, but that's one of the few things in this town with its natural beauty that I can really appreciate, besides the mountains and stuff. You know, I remember one of my cousins came from Texas years ago to come visit, and it was his first time coming to Nevada, and that's how you say it. It's Nevada, not Nevada, okay? Because everybody says that, and I don't know who taught you that, okay? The American public school system has failed you, okay? But yeah, no, it's Nevada. Anyway, he comes here and he experiences, Vegas, right? But like the suburbs, because it's a lot different when you live here versus when you're visiting, obviously, because there's a lot of people that are like, oh, that's just the Strip, right? And you guys live in casinos, or you guys live in the hotels like it's the sweet life of Zach and Coat. No, we own houses, okay? We own houses and live in communities and stuff like that, like anywhere else in America or the Western Hemisphere of the world, for that matter. So anyways, yeah, he comes here and he's sitting with me in the backseat of the van we got at the time, and he goes, just staring out the window, and I was like, what are you looking at? And he goes, I've just never seen so many mountains before, man. I'm like, it's kind of normal for me, man. But yeah, so it's just a little side story about, Las Vegas and its natural beauty. But anyways, so the real reason why I'm coming back on here again is, one, because I'm sorry that I did not upload this last Sunday, or I think the previous Sunday too. It's been like 2 weeks. I need to get a little more consistent with this. Just been a little more preoccupied with other things right now, but that's okay, That's life, right? One of my favorite podcasters, he likes to say it. He said whenever he's doing a podcast and he has something going on in the background, and whether it be kids playing or people inside of the gym he owns or whatever making noise, and he goes like, yeah, we do real life here. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's real life, man. So yeah, sorry about the non-uploads, but yeah, so back to the message for this Sunday. Yeah, so as I've been going through the last month of, well, pretty much most of August, if not all of it, and then like July, there's been some transformative things that have happened to me. One of those things being one of the major catalysts for me actually just opening up and talking on the internet, because for the longest time, like I said in the first video, I don't really post that often, right? So, yeah, so now I'm doing it, and I'm going to be launching a new channel soon that's actually going to be very much more professional in its way. But, it's because I want to share some things with you guys that I've learned through my experiences and journeys, so I can help you young men out there that are trying to find their way in life. Because for me, I turned 30 this next month. I'm pretty sure I probably said that in the previous video. But, I've been through a lot, and not just, bad things, good things too, plenty of good things, actually. I've enjoyed a lot of life so far, but yeah, so these transformations, it really prompted me to ask a lot of questions. Sorry guys, I'm passing by a power box. We also have those in Vegas. But yeah, it prompted me to ask a lot of questions about my life and where things go, and how things are for us, and what's my role in all this, right? Well, not even that, but more so, how am I going to go about that role, right? So a lot of people seem to be lost today because they're either doing one of three things, right? If you really want to put it into brass tacks, they're looking for pleasure, and they're just trying to find it in every crevice of life, which by technicality would be quote unquote the pursuit of happiness, which you know, most of us would be okay with, if not all of us, right? Like, we all want to be happy. That's a thing that everybody wants. But for most people, I would say, most people are aware, I would say, that happiness isn't always something that you're just going to find, right? In fact, you know, I don't know any of the statistics behind it. But judging from what I've been told from so many people that I've met and people that I've spent time with at work and in different arenas and stuff like that, they don't really understand that happiness isn't a thing you obtain through, you know, stuff or just experiences, you know, because the experience thing is a real big thing that people just don't, I don't think a lot of people get. You're going to have a lot of experiences in this life, and they will make you happy in the moment, right? But when you chase the experience, whether it's traveling or eating good food or having, you know, intercourse with somebody or whatever, right? It could be anything, you know, anything that brings you pleasure. When you just chase after those things, it essentially just becomes hedonism, you know, which a lot of people partake in and don't even know it nowadays. So there's that. So that's the first category of people, right? The hedonists, you know, for lack of a better term. So, I mean, it probably is the best term. I don't know. But if anybody's got any, you know, thing to say about that or rebuttal, please do. I want to hear it in the comments. But yeah, then you got the second group of people, right? Walking around, doing things on a daily basis, going to work, you know, living life. Folks at the growth. Okay, I accidentally clicked the button on that one, so I'm gonna have to edit that. But anyways, yeah, there's the same people that, you know, walking around, living life and going to Costco and whatnot that you see. That second group that's waddling around through here is the group that's kind of like on autopilot. You know, technically the people in the first group are on autopilot too, to an extent, you know, in my opinion, my unprofessional opinion, because when you're guided by the things of pleasure and the things of this world and the experiences that you're chasing after, you're no different than, I don't want to say like an animal, but technically you are. Like, you're chasing after the next thing. Now, we could get into the whole idea of like dopamine and all that jazz and oxytocin and, you know, brain chemistry and everything. But you take all that science away from it and you look at it with eyes on the surface. You know, it's pretty much it's vanity, man. You know, but and they're being controlled by their impulses to a point. You know, I used to struggle with the idea of, like, you know, having to not talk about, but more so having to be guided by feelings, right? Everybody says, follow your heart. And good evening. He looks excited. So, yeah, everybody says, follow your heart. You know, that's the one thing that we were all taught in, like, Disney movies and everything. It's like, oh, you know, your heart's going to show you the way and all this other stuff. And it's like, not really, because as you get older, you start to realize, you know, things you really, you think you like, you know, you don't really like. And then you also realize, like, hey, you know, maybe I shouldn't be doing everything my heart tells me to do, because my heart leads me to all sorts of fucked up places, excuse my French. But yeah, so that's a lot of people. Okay, I'm pretty sure when I say that, a lot of people would probably agree. But yeah, so with those people in the first categories, they're sort of still on autopilot. They're following their impulses, following the animalistic instinct to a point, you know. So in other words, it is like an autopilot. The second group of people, these people are in a higher version of that. I guess like the 2.0, or like, you know, they're no longer on the beta, right? They're just going. You know, they get stuck. It's almost like, and sorry about the reflection of the glasses, again, these wonderful sunsets in Las Vegas, especially on this street. I tell you, for years, I grew up in this neighborhood, and it's like, it's kind of funny. I didn't really grow up in it, but you know, most of my late teen years and stuff. But the street has always had like the best view of the sunset for some reason. But anyway, these second group of people, they're stuck on this autopilot where it's like and you see them on a daily basis. You go to work with these people. You live with these people. Okay, you eat with these people, and you sit with them, and you talk with them, and stuff like that. And sometimes, and maybe you are one of them. Okay, so you know, and maybe this video is the wake up call for you to kind of realize that. But there's a lot of people out there that are just stuck in this hamster wheel, right? And a lot of folks on YouTube talk about this, and you know, whenever you're going to the self-development space, people that are just trying to escape the daily grind and get out of the 9-to-5 trap and all these other things, right? And yeah, that's kind of the point, right? You know, we do want to get out of that. And when you look at the second group of people, those folks, majority of them are asleep. It's like the Matrix, right? Like, you know, we can always go back to that wonderful movie. I grew up watching that, you know, because my mom had no problem showing us, you know, straight up violence in movies. But, you know, but it's just, you watch that. I'm just kidding, by the way. But you watch those movies and you realize, like, yeah, the majority of people are asleep. And they don't care. Like, and, you know, for deep thinkers and people that, you know, really overthink a lot of things, it's easy to look at that group and be like, man, I really wish I was like them, you know, because it's just so much easier being asleep. And, you know, and you talk to people in that group, and some of them are awake, you know, but they just choose to be the way they are, right? Because they're content with it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, that goes back to the pursuit of happiness thing, right? You know, if being a simple person and being a part of the system is what you find pleasure in, then fine. That's cool, right? But when I say this, it's like a majority of people, they really just don't know where they're going in life. And before you know it, it's like, it's been 40 years. You know, I actually know someone that dealt with this. He's a little older, and he's been going through some troubles and trials that have really come, you know, through his career and a lot of different things. And he's finally got the time now that he's done with his job. You know, he's done working, essentially. And he's got the time to kind of sit with it. And he's realizing, you know, and he said something that was really profound. It's like, most of life, for him anyways, and it might resonate with some of you, most of life has just been him running down a long hallway. And he's like, when is it gonna end, right? And now he just kind of stopped, and you know, just kind of wondering, where'd the rest of my time go? Where did it all go? You know what I mean? And that's a lot of, I think that might be a lot of people, right? They, at least some people, you know, when they reach a specific age, they realize they were in that second group and they were on autopilot for many years and didn't really go anywhere, didn't really do the things they wanted to go do, aside from what the group was telling them they should do, or the things that were fun in the moment, right? And then before you know it, it's like, where'd all the time go? Life's purposes changed, right? So, you know, what's it? So yeah, sorry, it's that hour of the day where everybody's walking their dogs, so I like making the videos in the early morning. But yeah, so, you know, a lot of people, they find themselves in the middle of that hallway, so to speak, and they realize like they've just been running all their lives, and where did it all go, you know? But not everybody comes to that conclusion. And you know, the unfortunate part about Las Vegas is like, you see a lot of people like that really are kind of stuck, right? Like, you know, anybody that's been to a casino can kind of attest to it. You go inside, you see a bunch of old people, and all they're doing is, you know what I mean? Like, it's just dun, 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 dun. That's it. And then they either run out of their money, and then they go home and they'll watch TV, Netflix, whatever, eat, do their daily dozens, and then just go to sleep, and they'll wake up again and they'll do it all over again. And this happens until they either croak at the casino or they croak at home, right? And what kind of life is that? The third, now onto the third, because the second one was kind of convoluted there. The third group of people, this third group of people, they're not rare, but they're also not numerous, right? You got the kind of people that are just, they're whole, right? They're at peace with themselves. You've probably met them, and you probably know plenty of them, or you're probably one of them. And that third group, a lot of people seek after. They seek to be like, right? They're the folks you see on YouTube that seem to have it all together. They're the folks that, that we think have everything with all the money in the cars or whatever, and even then, some of those people, they're still in that first group, right? Even though they quote unquote made it. And I'm not saying money's bad. I think money's great. You should go get money. Okay. Take it from a guy that's, been up and down before. So, this third group though, it's not really based off of how much income they make or how much free time they got. It's just more so off of the purpose of their lives, right? And I think that's like the true maturity of man, is like when we finally come to the realization that none of this was really, like, we get this, I don't know if it's the same way in other places. I kind of doubt that it is, but we get this weird mentality where it's like everything in our lives has to be about us. And technically, you are the main character of your movie, okay? Because you're experiencing it every day, right? But most people just can't even be in the moment to enjoy the movie as it's being made. Think about that. All right? So and that's another discussion, but the purpose-driven people, those are the people we all want to be like, right? Because, like, at a certain point, it stops becoming about them, and it becomes about how much they can give, how much they can do for others, how much can they leave for the next guy, right? And that can be a range of different things, right? Like, we'd all love great Aunt Gertrude to leave us some money, which would be cool, right? I would love for somebody to leave me like $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million. That'd be great. It's something cool to leave behind. But unfortunately, most of us aren't in those shoes. But it's okay. We all have somebody in our lives that left something behind for us, because I can almost guarantee you, if you go through most of your life, okay, and I mean, I'm talking to the most down and out people right now when I say this. If you go through most of your life, okay, and I mean really sit there and think about it, you'll come to realize it's like, man, there is at least one person that came to me and gave me something to work with, right? And told me something better than what I had, or gave me an idea. It left that in my heart, planted the seed, and that led to higher living, where life had more meaning to it than just waking up and going to a job, or getting up to clothe the kids or whatever, which is also important because that takes care of the next generation. But it's like, it's more than just making it through the month and paying the bills, or even just going to the next vacation next year. That's the thing. Everybody's got somebody like that, right? So, made it back to the truck, but yeah. So that third group of people, they have that purpose, So I guess what I'm saying is, for this Sunday talk, is more so just like, find out where you're at. Okay, that's one thing that I've really, I've been blessed enough to be aware most of my adult life, which, to a point, most people, I would say, that are pretty aware or self-aware, they don't really want to be, because it can be a burden sometimes, right? But you really, for me, even during the last 10 years of my life, even in that awareness, I wasn't really happy, and that's more so of a me problem, right? So how did I get to the point where I found purpose again? Because I had purpose at the beginning of the story, when I started out as a young man, like in my late teens, and going into a military career and stuff like that. Because, I'll open up to you. So when I was 18, I ended up joining the military, and when I did that, a lot of people asked me why, because I had a lot of different opportunities afforded to me as a young man. My father, he had benefits that he basically had the ability to send us to any school we wanted to go to. So I had essentially a full ride scholarship, if you will, for any bachelor's degree that I wanted to go into, whatever field. But because of doubt and struggles in my teenage years, and not only that, like not really paying attention. Well, I paid attention in school, but I kind of took everything too close to heart when it came down to it, and I didn't really give myself the time or the energy to kind of figure out what kind of person I wanted to be, or where I wanted to be in life, and who I wanted to be, and who I actually was, right? I mean, I think that describes a lot of people, right? Because it takes a while to develop a personality, I would say. And even then, as we get older and as adults and stuff, I think that personality changes, obviously, right? Because, we go through experiences and we change our minds. But for me, I had a lot of opportunity at that time. Even after joining the military initially, I had opportunities afforded to me to go and do many other great things, which I won't talk about. But yeah, in the military and beyond. But everybody would ask me, why did you decide to join the military when you had all these opportunities? And well, okay, because I believe personally that that's where God, for me it's Jesus. Okay, I don't know who it is for you, Krishna, Allah, whatever. But it's like, for me, I believed that was where God was calling me to be. And I believed that with my whole heart. At the time I did, and I went into it, and everything just came together, And I think that's where the magic of life happens, right? Is where when we believe truly in our hearts and feel it emotionally and understand it intellectually that this is where we're supposed to be, right? Everything starts to just fall into place. And it did for me. Now, there were some things that happened along the path of the journey, right? Where I got knocked off the wagon a few times, got hurt, whether it was emotionally or physically or whatever, right? And that changed my perspective, my personality, if you will. And I had a hard time dealing with it. So much so, I just drank a whole carton of liquid egg whites, and it was awesome. But 100 grams of protein in that. But anyway, so I went through my own time of crisis, if you will, of faith, and that lasted for, I want to say, most of my 20s, right? Because, like I said, I'm about to turn 30, and it wasn't until recently that I came back to a place of peace with not only myself but with God, right? If you guys want to hear the story about all that stuff, I can tell it, but I definitely, it's going to have to be for another video and explicitly on that subject. And I don't really know if you guys want to know all that stuff. But yeah, it took me approximately 8 years, 8 or 9 years to really come to terms with a lot of the different things that were going on with me, and where my purpose really lied, because one lesson I've learned through all of that is that if you take hope out of a man and you take his purpose, right? He has nothing. If you take his desires, he has nothing, right? And for me, at the time, the propellant into all these different adventures and stuff like that, the thumos, if you will, was God, right? And when my perspective of that purpose shattered in light of events and situations I found myself in where I didn't have the answers to them, and most people didn't have the answers for me, I broke, and I didn't really have the purpose I wanted. That's why I used to tell people, I've never done anything for money, never. Okay, I mean, a couple of things, in the course of like the last couple of years where I had to for the sake of others, yeah, sure, I did that, but it's, for me personally, I've never done anything for money, man. I never really worried about money. And you know what's funny about that, right? It's like, you ever meet those people where everything just kind of falls into place for them and all that jazz, and they just seem to be nonchalant about everything, you law of attraction people out there, that's another conversation, but it's I never really worried about money, and now I'm taken care of. I've been taken care of for a long time. I don't really have to worry about it so much. I mean, in recent times, through the crises and stuff like that, which brought me to the time of now where I'm actually opening up to the world and I'm being, available and vulnerable. I was stressed about it, but now, not really. So there's been some major changes with me because I found purpose again. And that's what I want you guys to think about, is find out where you were at in those three groups of people, identify it, figure out what stage of that you're in. And we didn't really talk about that, but, like, are you aware, one, of what you're chasing after and what it's going to bring you? Because I guarantee you, if it's pleasures and the things of this world and stuff like that, it's only going to last so long. And then if you're in the second group and you feel like you're in the hamster wheel, just, okay, stop, think about what you're doing, and then take some time. And I mean, really, take some time. Like, go for walks every morning. That is probably one of the most transformative things that has helped me throughout this entire process, is just spending time in quiet and being with God, right? Father Moses McPherson, I think his name is, on YouTube, is really good about talking about these type of things. He's an Orthodox priest. I'm not an Orthodox Christian, but I like listening to these guys because they have good wisdom. So just you can look him up on that, and he kind of taught me that through his videos, where you want to find God, just go to silence, right? And he was totally correct, because if you really want to find where the voice of God is, or and if you're not somebody that believes in God, they're like, okay, let's just use the word of intuition, right? Like, if you want to find the voice of your intuition, you'll find it in silence. So if you're in that second category, find some silence, get away from everything, and I'm not saying isolate, sitting in your room and stuff like that. That's not solitude, that's stagnation. So yeah, find that. And then if you're finding yourself becoming part of, or seeking to be a part of the third group, through that silence and everything, you'll start to, and as you become more aware of the things around you and your life, and for what it's worth, you'll start to find that purpose that was put in your heart long ago, before anybody ever took it from you. That's my story for today, guys. I know it was long, but I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it made sense to you. Like the video, comment, subscribe, and hit the little bell, and that way whenever I post, you find out about it. Okay, and share it with your friends if it talks to you, if it made you laugh, it made you cry, made you think, really share it with your friends. Thanks, guys.